Hi everyone. So I just wanted to do a quick video. I'm going to be doing videos every week at least on this new group. I've been planning this for a while. So my first video is going to be about the awakening process, what happens, how it starts, and what it is and where it can lead to. So first of all, what is waking up? Waking up is your call to live. I recently did a reading for a guy who has recently just kind of woken up to the world. And one thing he said to me was, I've only just realized that everyone's wearing a mask. Obviously not a real mask, but we're all kind of playing a role. And that was an interesting way to see it. And it's kind of a little bit like how I saw it a long time ago. I feel that most people who, I guess, wake up, we wake up because we have a spark of something within us that shows us that what we see out there in reality or perceived reality isn't quite as it seems to be. Jordan Maxwell, I think that's one thing that he always said was, whatever you think the world is, it's something quite different. In terms of like the systems that we have, the politics, the policies, nothing works the way you think it works. He said so. He used to say something like that, and it's absolutely true. And I think for me, that was one of the things that first woke me up. I'm quite lucky that my mum was like the first truther that I've ever known, and I remember back in the 90s, she'd always be saying, "Oh, Caroline, come and see this, come and see that," and I'd be like, "Yeah, whatever." Not interested in all that, all that, whatever I thought it was. I just thought she was a bit, a bit far gone, to be honest. And it wasn't until 9/11 that I realized that what they were telling us wasn't true. And so that kind of led me to my own inquiry and study during 2009, 2010, mainly when my first daughter was born. And it was an eye-opener. What I was seeing online was an eye-opener. I didn't believe everything, but there were a lot of things that were being said in the mainstream media that just didn't make any sense. I'm sure that a lot of people woke up with that one, but my mum was awake before me, well before me. So and this led to my sort of dark night of the soul, which happened in 2012. And so back in 2012, I'm not going to bore you. Some people have heard this story quite a few times, I'd imagine, because I've said it quite a few times. But my story goes that on 21st December 2012, something happened, and I realized that I needed to make a change and I needed to heal myself. And it was almost like a voice from God. I just knew that I needed to make a change. And I had known for many years, especially in my 20s, and I was probably about 35 then. And I knew that I needed to make a change, and I didn't really know how I was going to do it. So I started reading a lot of New Age bullshit, and I started putting it in place. But there were some good things in there, like the creative visualization, meditation, self-reflection, all those kinds of things. They were really good. But this idea of manifesting that they kept on sort of pushing, as in like you do your vision board and you keep your thoughts really positive and everything positive is going to happen to you. It just, after a while, I realized that was complete bullshit. I also got into various different people. One of them, from the first ones, was Santos Bonacci and his work on astrotheology. And then it took me a bit of time to get into Michael Tsarian's work, because I don't know why I was a bit against it initially. I just thought I can't go there. And then suddenly, I don't remember what I watched, but one of the main interviews that I was really interested in was, or that I listened to quite a few times, was called, what was it called? Called War on Consciousness. And that was something else. And I don't know, I haven't found it since then, but I think parts of it have been broken down now and are called various different things. But it was one of the main things that I remember watching from him, where it really opened up my eyes to, I guess it opened up my eyes to many things in terms of the world and people and relationships and psychology and all kinds of things. but it also kind of woke me up to a new way of delivery, because the way that he was delivering was really different to this kind of unapologetic honesty that initially was a little bit like stop. But in the end I realized that it was that his work changed my life. It was through his work that I found out about Carl Jung, and then I did a course in Jungian psychology with art therapy, and that really changed my life as well, because then I started to make art, and I started to be creative, and I started to work on my shadow without realizing it. I started drawing and painting and creating and expressing myself and learning about Carl Jung's concepts, and finally taking my dreams seriously, and learning about them, because it had always been an interest. My mum always had these books around. Is it Linda Evans, the astrologer? There was a lot of really interesting books in my home, and things about sort of anomalies and strange things in the world, and just sort of fascinating subjects. But I really didn't pick up a book until I was around that time, which is probably about until I was 35. Until then, I was pretty brain dead, if I'm honest with you, and really suffered. I really suffered from the age of about 28 until from 28 until, I don't know, I'd say about 40, and then I had a good spell, and now I'm 47. I'm about to be 47. There's a really good filter on this. I think I look a bit younger on this than I actually really look. I'm sticking with it. It's all right. So yeah, but yeah, obviously, I kind of I learned a lot of things, and I taught myself how to do how to read tarot. And tarot is one of my many loves. One of my first loves was play, children's play. So I've worked with children for over 20 years. I still work with children part-time, and it's something that I really love to do. Yeah, so waking up for me was a big shocker, and it led to a Kundalini rising, and it really did shook my world, really. And I was able to kind of conduct myself with the day-to-day, but inside there was just so much going on, and I had these new psychic powers that kind of suddenly dawned on me, and they were very, very difficult to deal with. They were very intrusive. I found them very intrusive, and so I found ways to turn them back off again. And because I did have some psychic attack, and I had to learn how to deal with my own energy. And around that time, I became attuned to level 1 Reiki, and over time, I've become a Reiki master healer. I am a healer. I'm a master teacher. But it's one of my many loves. And what I've realized over time is that in order to heal yourself, you need to also be able to manage your own energy, keep boundaries between yourself and other people, and to transmit, to recognize your ability to receive and transmit energy, and to transmit positive energy where it's needed. And to really find a balance between the shadow work and, I guess, what I would now call light work, which is the energy work, which is the clearing of the chakras, which is the connection to whatever you want to call it, God, universal consciousness, spirit, whatever. We do need both. And in terms of archetype, there's no, I've said this in a podcast recently, that there's no bigger archetype of the masculine and feminine than God the Father and Earth the Mother. And I think if you can come close to some of those two, if you can be in nature, and if you can connect with whatever you think God is, or source energy, the universe, or whatever you want to call it, the creator, if you can have a relationship with both, then you're as close to what I've experienced as healed as you can get. And so, some of you have been following me since I've been online since 2019. And I've been sort of sharing stuff about the shadow, and I was really kind of going psychology heavy for a really long time until my more recent Dark Night of the Soul, which happened in 2 years ago, around about 2 years ago. And where I kind of, I had to go through a system of, I guess, suffering and transformation myself. Well, one of the things was that I had a baby, and my other daughter's 13. I now have a almost 2-year-old. But going through the process of being pregnant again at the age of 45 was a really difficult thing for me to go through. And I wish it had been an easy thing for me to have gone through, but it wasn't. And it kind of shook me in terms of my sort of my self-identity, who I was and where I was going, because in my head, I'd been planning this work that I'm doing now. I'd been planning this work way back then. And and suddenly I was like, well, who am I? who is Caroline then? And then I had to realize that what kind of fucking mask was I wearing? And I thought I'd always been quite careful about if you have like an online persona, you have to also manage your own ego with that, because people come to you with questions and they're seeking answers. And I've always been quite self-reflective and tried to keep my feet on the ground. But then I was kind of asking myself, well, if this can shape me so much in terms of who I think I am, then I better just kind of take a hold of myself. And this is part of the reason, not all of it, part of the reason why I haven't been online for the past 6 months. And the other good reason is because I really just needed to be mum. I just needed to be at home with my children, and just to be there for them, and to have like just to have the summer, obviously my other daughter's in school, but to have the summer for just for me and the baby, really just to be with her before I know I needed to start work. So, and this is me starting work, and I've been sort of creating various different sort of workbooks and journals. And I've also got a really good program coming up. And the program is called Inner Alchemy. And it's going to take you through the whole of the healing process. I can't say you're going to be absolutely healed by the end of it, but we're going to be working on healing various different aspects of the shadow, definitely facing the shadow. And I'm just going to be looking down here because I've got a few notes. So some of the headlines or the headings of the modules are these. So we've got facing the shadow, dissolving the false self, looking into dream work, inner child work, mother and father wound. That goes into the mother hunger and father hunger. Then also animus integration. You probably won't integrate it within these 8 weeks, because this is a lifelong kind of lesson, I guess. But I definitely set you on the right path for anima and animus integration, which also affects relationships. And I'll also be talking about sort of ending the cycle of toxic relationships as well, which is my next one of the next projects that I'm working on at the moment. So and then I've got reclaiming the masculine and feminine, cultivating self-love and forgiveness and acceptance of self. And then we go from victim to hero. So it's really dropping the victim mentality, which is something that can be really, what's the word? It can be really soothing, this idea of we fall in love with our suffering. And we place ourselves as victim especially in relationships, when relationships go wrong. And so it's like really going back to that sort of idea of radical honesty. So looking at our core beliefs, resetting our core beliefs, because usually they're set at a young age. Looking at our core values, our boundaries, facing our fears and building on self-esteem. The next one is psychic protection, cord cutting, release, letting go of the past. And then we'll be looking at manifestation in order to create the world that you desire. So within that are going to be lots of different topics and discussions. But these are all things that I can talk about with confidence now, because I've been through the cycles. And I think also because I've been doing tarot for such a long time, and tarot tells a story of man. And when, it's kind of the same story each time. I mean, you could know your own story, really, just by looking at the tarot, because it's every person with a spark of life in them.